Hey, fourth graders and fourth grade adults. Thankfully, now that the division unit's over, we can move on to our next unit, which is discussing patterns, which is much easier for fourth graders. But I still want to make some of these videos because we still do have some confusions at times. So I just want to make this to show you how we can solve certain types of pattern problems. So when we start with patterns, we're starting with repeating patterns. And we're going to look at repeating patterns specifically with numbers. So that means that repeating means that you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Repeating means that you're doing the same thing over and over again. Repeating, okay, 2 was enough, sorry. So looking at these examples, because I find that actually doing the patterns is the best way to learn them, let's go through these. So number 1, the first one I have a number sequence starting with 4, then it goes 4, 9, 14, 19, 24. So what I want to do is see what's happening between each of the numbers. So I always ask the students going from one number to the next, is it increasing or decreasing? And then what operations go with that when it increases or decreases? So going from 4 to 9, I notice that our numbers are increasing, they're getting bigger. So I can get larger numbers by either adding or multiplying. So I want to see if I added or multiplied here. So going from 4 to 9, well, there's no number that I can multiply, no whole number I can multiply 4 by to get 9. So I must be adding. So 4 plus 5 would give me 9. Now I want to check to make sure that this applies for every single number. And if it does, then it's a repeating pattern. I know that's my rule. So I'm going to check 9 to 14. So 9 plus 5, that does give me 14, all right? So that's plus 5. 14 plus 5, that gives me 19. And then this one will be adding 5 as well. So now I need to find the next 2 numbers in the pattern. So 24 plus 5, that's what I need to do. So 24 plus 5, well, that would give me 29. Now my next number, I need to do the same thing. I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. So now I'm going to add 5. 29 plus 5 is 34. Now the students pick up on this real quick. So hopefully this isn't too much of a problem. Once they see that we're adding 5 each time, well, then they could keep going on forever. That's why we only ask usually for the next 2, 3, something like that. All right, now let's look at number 2. So now I have 64, 60, 56, 52, 48, 44. So again, you need to ask yourself, are my numbers going up? Are they increasing or are they decreasing? Because that's going to tell us what we should be doing. And I notice they're decreasing. So the 2 operations that we always ask ourselves, we always ask ourselves what operations decrease numbers, and the 2 are subtraction and division. So looking, going from 64 to 60, well, I didn't divide 64, so I must be subtracting. So this one's easy because I have a 0 in my ones place value, so I know I'm subtracting 4. And now I just want to go through and make sure that every time I have a new number, that it's 4 less than the number before. So 64 to 56, that would be minus 4, subtracting 4, I'm subtracting 4, I'm subtracting 4. So now when I get to my next one, my unknown ones, I just need to take the last one that I know, subtract 4, and I get the next number in the pattern. So in this case, that would be 40. Next number, I'm going to subtract 4, and then I get 36. So for repeating patterns, we can use addition. We can also show it with subtraction. All right, now for number 3. I'm going to ask myself the same question. Is it increasing or decreasing? So I have it increasing. And since this one was increasing as well, I'm going to check to see if I'm adding. All right, so going from 3 to 6, I see that I added 3. Okay, easy enough. Going from 6 to 12, all right, I see that's adding 6. Well, now I'm not repeating the pattern. They're not the same thing. So I know it's not addition, because then if I also go to the next one, now I'm adding 12. There's no repeating pattern with addition happening. So now I need to think, what's the other operation that increases my numbers? And that would be multiplication. So let me try to multiply 3 by something to get 6. All right, so 3 times 2 will give me 6. Let me check to see if this rule works for all the others. All right, 6 times what gives me 12? 6 times 2. All right, so then 12 times 2. All right, so that gives me 24. So now I know my rule, that rule that I'm repeating, I'm multiplying by 2. So I take my 24, multiply that by 2. I can do it by place value. I know 4 multiplied by 4 is 8, and then 20 multiplied by 2 is 40, so I know my answer must be 48. So I'm going to take the 48, because that's the number that I know, and I'm going to multiply it by 2 to get the next number in the pattern. So I'm going to multiply that by 2. Well, I know 50 multiplied by 2 is 100. So since this is 2 less, that means that it must be 4 less than 100. So then it would be 96. And of course, if the students need to do an area model, they could do that. If they need to add 48 and 48, that's fine. I was just showing a different strategy for the students that they can use for multiplication in their head. All right, so now we have one that has multiplication. All right, the last one that I have for you guys set up is I have 160, 80, 40, 20. All right, so again, I want the kids to ask themselves, is this increasing or decreasing? Well, since it's decreasing, why don't we check subtraction? Because this one was decreasing and we subtracted. All right, so 160 minus 80, well, I can see that I subtracted 80 there. But if I take my 80 and subtract 80, I get 0, and I don't have that for my third number. So it can't be subtracting 80. So now I need to think, all right, what operation is like subtraction? And that would be division. So 160 divided by what is 80? Well, I know 80 is half of 160, so that must mean I'm dividing by 2. All right, so then 80, if I split 80 in half, all right, that's 40, so yeah, I'm dividing by 2, and the same thing for here. So now my next two numbers in the pattern, I just need to take the number that I know and divide it by 2. So 20 divided by 2, all right, so that will give me 10. If I take my 10, divide by 2, that will give me 5. So that's how I can finish off these repeating patterns. It's just following the rule, the same rule every time. It doesn't change. It's, for number 1, it stayed adding 5. Number 2, it stayed subtracting 4. Number 3, I multiplied by 2, and 4, I divided by 2. So hopefully that was pretty easy for you guys to see, and hopefully the students, as they practice this, it comes a lot more natural. They just really want to check the relationships between each of the numbers and make sure that it's the same. So I have for you guys a challenge. So let me erase this, and I want to have a challenge for you guys to see if you can figure out how to solve this next problem. So erasing all that, I have a problem here that I wrote out in advance, and it's asking us what's the 10th number in this pattern. So this time I'm not asking what's the next number, the next two numbers. I want to know the 10th number. So we're starting with 6, 10, 14, 28, 22, and 26. So at this point in the video, I would absolutely encourage you to pause the video and try to solve this on your own. So I'll give you a few moments to pause and you can solve it. All right, hopefully you figured out the answer and you're excited because you know you have the right answer. But let's just go over and check to make sure that you have the right answer. So first thing I need to do is find out, well, what's the pattern? What is it asking me, or what's happening in this number, in this pattern? So I am going from 6 to 10. All right, there's nothing I can multiply 6 by. There's no whole number I can multiply 6 by to get 10. So I must be adding because I'm increasing. So I know I'm adding 4. All right, so then 10 plus 4 would give me 14. 14 plus 4 would give me 18. So I know the rule is adding 4. Now I don't want the next two. I want the 10th number. So what we're going to have to do is actually figure out what that 10th number would be. The easiest way, because we could do the 10th, we're only looking for the 10th one, is we can just finish the pattern going to 10. So this would be my first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one. So my seventh number would be 30. 26 plus 4 would be 30, so that's my 7th. All right, my 8th would be 30 plus 4, which would be 34. My 9th one would be 34 plus 4, would be 38. And then finally, my 10th one would be 38 plus 4, which would be 42. So the 10th number in this pattern was 42. All right, hopefully you got that answer. If you didn't, hopefully now you see that strategy, finishing off the pattern until you get to that 10th pattern, that 10th number in the pattern. And boom, that's your answer. All right, hopefully this helps with repeating patterns with numbers. If this helped you, awesome. If you have any questions, leave a comment, email me, dojo me, do whatever you need to do. All right, thank you. Have a great night.